Welcome to the 100 Master Coaches series featuring master coaches from around the world. Let's journey together on this 100 Master Coaches series with your host, Coach Mel, MCC. Today's master coach is Claire Pedrick. She has a passion to develop people to transform the conversations they have at work, drawing on the simplest and most powerful learning from coaching for sustainable impact. Now on to the show.
Let's get to it. I have a couple of questions, and the first one being, tell us something about your coaching story. How did it all begin for you?
Well, that's really interesting because I only knew it had begun 10 years after I started.
Oh, wow. Tell us more.
So I got a job it was more than 10 years. So my career, I was a teacher in a village in Kenya, in the mountains, and for 2.5 years, and no water, no road, small school. It was amazing, and that changed my life. It changed my values.
Sure.
And when I came back to the UK, I got a job that was called Information and Counselling Secretary.
Okay.
Well, I wasn't a secretary.
Interesting title. I was about to say.
And it wasn't counselling. Otherwise, it was a great job. So What I was doing, I was mentoring and coaching people who wanted to work in international development. And I started that job in 1987. And in 1997, when I'd been doing that for 10 years, so it was non-directive. And it was doing two things. It was helping people think about what they wanted to do next. And then when they'd worked that out, it was giving them some information. So before the age of the internet, I had a library of information. So which I'd collected, which was very specialized in the organization I worked in. So it was coaching and mentoring. And then one day I had small children. I went to stay with my mum and dad. And my mum had left a magazine by the bed, and I read the magazine, and there was an article about coaching, and it was like the scales fell off my eyes, and I looked at this article and I thought, this is what I do. My job has a name. Other people do it too.
Oh wow. And so when you read that magazine, that first response was, I do all these things that they say in this magazine, in this little article. And what happened? What happened next?
Well, my younger child was about 3 years old, and I had known for a long time that I wasn't trained to do what I did.
Okay.
And that I was making it up. Well, I wasn't. I mean, I was learning. I was learning a lot. And in fact, one of the things that we offer now in my business, which is called a career makeover, is exactly what I was doing then. Although I think I do it better now than I did then, because I've learned a lot.
I am sure.
So I'd been thinking for a long time about getting training in something, and I had been unclear about what to get training in. And also I had committed to being to not working when the children weren't in school. So to working school hours and school terms only. Okay. So what I did was I found out about coach training. Back in those days, there were two things you could do. You could do CTI, Coaches Training Institute, which was where you had to travel. Or you could do Coach U, which was on the phone. So I telephoned, because that's how you did it in those days. I telephoned a few people who trained with CTI and with Coach U, and asked them some questions about how did they, now they were trained, how, did they get work? How did they get work? Had the training equipped them to do that? So asking some future focused questions about the training. And then I decided to do my coach training on the phone. And then I had to suspend all the 10 years experience that I had. So I started out coaching with thousands of hours of experience, which I had to put to one side because the people that I was working with didn't know it was coaching.
Yeah.
And then I got my MCC. And after I got my MCC, I felt that I could put those numbers back in.
Got it.
So in terms of getting my credential, my credential was based on the hours I got after I started calling myself a coach.
Yeah.
But I guess now I've got over 11,000 hours that started in the 1980s.
Just about 11,000 hours. That's fantastic. Wonderful. I'm just going to jump into the next one. The second question is, how was your first 5 years going with coaching? Your wins, perhaps a bit of things that you have to learn along the way. How was that for you?
So one of the things I think that's great about coaching is that you don't have to remember anything. And you are asking me to remember something that happened forever ago. So I have no idea.
It's all right. Take your time.
So I think probably I made as many mistakes as I had successes. I remember hearing Thomas Leonard speak.
Wow.
So Thomas Leonard was the person who was written the article about that I read in my mum's house. And I heard him speak, and he said, just coach 1,000 people. Never mind niches, never mind anything else, just coach 1,000 people. I think I was a little bit loyal to tools and techniques in those early days. I think I wasn't very comfortable with them, but I felt that I'd learned that I should use them. And I think I was probably using them more than I should have. So the learning of the last 20 years is throw almost everything in the trash, get them to do the work, and don't do very much, and amazing things will happen.
Let's not get to that yet, because we've got a couple of questions. It is good. It is good so far. Thank you. What you said, what Thomas said, 1,000 people without niches. That is just mind blowing, because that allows us to really put it to the test. Just go out there, coach. And Thomas Leonard, just for the audience who may not know who it is, he is considered the grandfather of coaching, modern day coaching, and also the founder of ICF. So let me stop there. Yeah. And you were going to say?
Yeah, I can't remember what I was going to say now. Oh, yes. Deep down in the ICF competencies of mastery, it says that at master level, the coach trusts the process more than they trust themselves. And I think there's something about getting a lot of hours that makes you really learn that lesson, that it's not about me.
Yeah.
A great conversation is not about what I did. It's about me creating the environment for them to do some really great work. And I think that to learn that, we need to get some hours under our belt, really.
Yeah. Wonderful. I'm going to segue to the question, which I always ask in this series, which is, what is the bravest thing that you have done as a coach?
So I'm listening to two things there. One is, what's the bravest incident versus what's the bravest kind of strategy.
Got it.
And I guess I'll answer that with the bravest strategy. The bravest strategy is to not speak. And to hold people in their discomfort for long enough for transformation to emerge.
Wow.
So that's the deep bit. Shall I tell you the easy bit, which is how to do that?
Please. Yes, please.
Never speak first.
Never speak first.
Never break the silence. So if you don't break the silence, you can do that because they break the silence. And so the silence might be 5 minutes. So the bravest thing was the learning that it's not about what I do, it's about what emerges. And what I do isn't very impressive, because if it is, then the person I'm working with begins to think it's about me, and it isn't, it's about them.
Absolutely.
So
That's
so
beautiful.
in my book, I'm talking a lot about what do we call people and how do we really truly work in partnership. And actually, you'll notice I haven't once said client, because I find that client is power language. I'm the coach and you're the client. I'm a human being. I have conversations with other human beings. I know how to facilitate their thinking, and I'm just a human being.
Yeah.
And what a great thing that is.
It is. It is. It is. Removes all those different status and filters that we sometimes put on because of cultural stroke different environmental contexts that are seemingly important, but it's somewhat not in that coaching conversation.
It's really interesting. You say we might put them on, but I think there's another risk, which is I don't put it on, but you give it to me anyway. So if you think about, so partnership is about being power equal.
Yeah.
So in coaching training, we teach people how not to take power over somebody else.
Yeah.
So we all learn that. That's great. We know how to not take power over somebody else. But the issue is, if you give me power, I still have power over you.
Nice.
Therein lies a huge challenge in coaching, because we need to learn how to equalize enough.
That is good. That is good. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. I'm going to move to the next question. What are the 3 insights that you have gotten thus far over your X number of years? I won't mention the years, but you can.
30 something.
Woo!
Well, really interestingly, the first one, which I think is the most important, I knew, but I knew it in a new way the week before I submitted my manuscript and had to rewrite the whole book. So insight number 1 is, don't start doing the work until you know what you're doing, how you're going to do it, and how you're going to know you've done it in every single conversation. Wow. So that's coaching competency. In the old competencies, that's number 2. In the new competencies for the ICF, that's number 3, establishing and maintaining agreements. But actually what it is, it's about not diving in to do the work until we know what the question is that we are exploring together, and that question is the right size for the time that we have.
Oh, I love
so that's
that one.
So get the question the right size is number 1. Number 2 is move.
Move.
So when I started training coaches in 2003, I used to teach half a day on dealing with stuckness.
Okay.
So what happens is, you and I are in a coaching conversation, you get stuck. What happens when somebody gets stuck is they get very still. And then the coach matches the stillness. So now we're both very stuck. Now we can try desperately to remember our unsticking strategies.
Yes.
And what I know is, if I go, so Mel.
Yeah. Just a bit about breaking that pattern.
Yeah. Beautiful. So even when I'm coaching online or on the phone, I use movement a lot. So that would be another insight. And the third insight is quite a new one. End the conversation in partnership.
Wow.
And it is in the new ICF competencies, and it's really difficult to do. Well, it isn't if you know that you didn't normally do it, but most people most conversations end because the person who seems to have more power than the other person takes control over the end. So I say to you, so Mel, we've run out of time. Let's talk about that again next time we meet. So what I've done is I've cut off the end of the conversation.
True.
Now, what we know, or what I know, is that the best learning happens after the conversation is over. But only, imagine that the conversation is like a plane.
Yeah.
So the best bit only happens if we land the plane. If you just stop the plane in the middle of the sky, they land on they land on an island, and they have to wait till you pick them up next time. Ooh. Whereas if you can end the conversation in partnership, they will. And you'll have to read my book to find out how to do that, but it's not that.
And that is coming out. We will give you a plug at the end. It is coming out in December. It is. Yeah. All right. Woo. Thank you for the 3 wonderful insights. If you had a chance to do it all over again, I'm not saying you should. 30 plus years. What would you do differently, Claire?
Well, actually, that's what I teach now. So I learnt complicated, and then I stopped doing complicated and started doing simple. And now I teach the ICF competencies of mastery to beginners. So on day 1, we're talking about the ICF competencies at master level. Now, I know that doesn't give them the wisdom of experience, but it does give them the depth of simplicity. And I would say, if I was to start again, I would just not ever do the complicated at all.
Wow. Put all of those complicated things away.
Yeah, because you don't need them.
Yeah.
So when I trained, I received like, I don't know, more than 30 centimeters of pages of handouts. So this is my coach training handout for the whole thing. and most of these pages are blank.
Amazing. Simplicity.
Yes. Yeah. And Charlie Chaplin, the comedian, said simplicity is not a simple thing. It's not actually that easy to be simple, but when we are simple, it has such hugely powerful impact.
Very true. You know, I must add, Claire, that that point just resonates so deep in today's lockdown mode, right? And we think that we need all of these things and all of these activities and all of these friendships that we have, and they're important, don't get me wrong, right? But when it comes down to what's really important, what really makes a difference, what's really meaningful, it's the simple things. It's a meal with a family, right? Perhaps just being with them even the whole day on a weekend and a weekday as well. It's finding that balance. Thank you.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think that we live in a society that's hungry for knowledge and qualifications. But in coaching, it's about what we do in the room. And what we do in the room is only in service of the thinking of the other person. But what happens is we feel we ought to have tools.
Yeah.
So I begin to gather tools. And the more tools I gather, the less I'm paying attention to you. Because I'm just getting all this stuff and it's suddenly in the way and I can't see you.
Yeah. The presence.
The best resource. Yeah, the best resource in the conversation is the other person. And it may be that tools are useful. It might be, but they need to be the last thing we use and not the first thing. You
That
can see
is
I'm on a mission.
that's a lot of wisdom there, and I'm going to munch on that. I am truly going to munch on that. Thank you so much. In your mind's eye, Claire, we are living in a new world these days. What do you think the future of coaching is going to look like?
Well, there's a question. So one of the things that we bring to coaching is the capacity, if we can be brave, to deal with not knowing.
Oh,
so I
yeah.
say to coaches, if you know what you're doing in the middle of the conversation, you're not coaching.
Oh, wow. That is so good. So true.
So the gift that we bring to the world is a capacity to bravely hold not knowing, which is kind of needed.
You got to be brave for that. You got to brave yourself for that as well.
And I think society needs to be able to learn how to do that. And I think that I'd like to split your question into two, which is one is what's the future for professional coaches?
Yeah.
The other one is what's the future for coaching as a way of communicating?
Yeah.
And the future for coaching as a way of communicating is it's absolutely really fundamentally important. What's the future for professional coaches? I think, well, I can remember when I trained in the 1990s, somebody saying to me that if you filled a football stadium with coaches, it would be full. And if you went back next year, it would still be full, but it would be a completely different group of people except for a small group.
Wow.
So I think one of the things about the future of coaching is, as a profession, I think we need to be willing to give it away. And there will always be a place where people need somebody who is outside their context. But I think we expect people to have coaching when they could coach themselves. So there'll be a specialized place in teams, in organizations, in leadership teams, and with individuals where actually there is nothing better than an external thinking partner.
Yeah.
And I hope that as a global population, we can really encourage people to use some of the coaching principles to manage not knowing and thinking about, how do I move this forward? Because the thing that's so amazing and unique about the ICF definition of coaching is that it's future focused and optimistic.
Yeah.
So there's even as you establish the coaching agreement, there's hope in the questions. What would you like to be different by the end of this conversation? Says something can be.
Yeah.
And so many conversations in our world are backwards facing, and they go, tell me how bad it is. And the person goes, it's very bad. Actually, it's so bad and it's worse than I thought it was.
Yeah. Let me share with you how bad is my day and my week or whatever. And everyone shares the same pot of misery. It adds on.
And then the coach says, tell me about the badness. And then they go, well, actually, it's so bad. It's really, 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 really bad. So that's why we need to be future focused. So future focused and optimistic. And actually, I think that coaching is a really efficient way of having a conversation. And it changes the world. It changes lives. It's amazing.
I really think so as well. And that's why I believe that I say this quite often, we need to democratize coaching. In Asia, and I'll speak for the time I've been in Asia, we say that it is a privilege to have a coach. So that means, what it means is that coaches are only for the high performers, the talents of the organizations. Then what about the rest of the people, the poor middle managers that don't need coaching now? And so I'm on a mission, just like you are, to democratize coaching. Coaching needs
Good.
to be for everyone.
Absolutely.
I would love to see coaching in schools where teachers are trained with that inquisitive nature to ask questions a lot more than giving the answers. For example, right? Parents,
totally.
another one. Parents, like myself. I know. I know. I've been kind of parent before, and I really thank God that I became a coach, and that actually changed my life. Another time for that story.
Amazing.
Yeah, Claire. The next question is, what is your master wisdom that you want to leave behind for the budding coaches listening in?
Don't work so hard.
I like that.
If you do all the work, your colleague, your partner, the thinker in the conversation isn't going to do any. So my budding wisdom is stop doing all the work. Because it's not, that's not what you're there for. You're simply there to keep them company while they think. And that's my definition of coaching.
Oh my gosh.
And so you only let me have one. Can I have 1.5?
Oh, please.
So here it is.
Okay.
We are on the search for nirvana, and nirvana in coaching is great questions.
Mm-hmm.
But what I notice when I watch coaches coaching is they don't wait for their great question to land before they ask another one. So what I would say is, if you want, so number one, don't work too hard. And number two, watch how it lands. And if you want to be a really amazing coach, listen to recordings of yourself coaching and take absolutely no notice of what you did.
Amazing.
Listen to the thinker thinking.
Yeah.
Notice, are they thinking?
Yeah.
And if they're not thinking, notice where you spoke too early.
Wow.
And if you do that, you will become an amazing coach.
Thank you.
And you won't have spent any money.
Besides getting your first certification from a good school. So that's the first thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's important. Last question. We've already come to the end of our call, Claire. Oh.
Wow.
It's been a ball. The last question is this. As you leave this call, what is that powerful question that you like to leave behind for our listeners today, which is a mix of people, of leaders, of different kinds of people that are on YouTube and LinkedIn? What is your powerful question?
My powerful question is this. What's the least that you need to do to have the greatest impact?
Beautiful. And I'll let that sink in. Amazing, Claire.
Pleasure.
And I say thank you. Before we go there, I'm going to give you a chance to give us some plugs that are coming in, like the new book. The new book is coming in. Please share with us a little bit about that exciting.
So,
story.
4 things. Number 1 is everything I've spoken of and more is freely available on the blog, www.3dcoaching.com/blog, including 2 or 3 articles about landing the plane. Number 2, the book comes out in December 2020, and it's called Simplifying Coaching: How to Have More Transformational Conversations by Doing Less. It will be available globally. Publisher is Open University Press, McGraw-Hill. Thirdly, we have a podcast called The Coaching In, where you can get loads of free ideas about this stuff. And fourthly, we do all of our training online, and one of them is a coaching practicum, which is an opportunity for 8 hours to watch thinkers thinking while coaches coach. So you get an opportunity to practice, but most significantly, you get 7.5 hours
Wow.
to watch thinkers thinking. And absolutely for sure, that's where people do their best learning. So have a look on our website. You'd be absolutely really welcome.
And with that, I say thank you, Claire. MCC, 30 plus years coaching, 11,000 plus hours and counting. Amazing, amazing insights that you have shared so freely. Thank you so much for being on the call.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. This is Coach Mal signing off in the 100th Master Coaches series. Catch you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.
You have been watching the 100 Master Coaches series with your host, Coach Mel, MCC. Brought to you by Catalyst Coach. www.catalystcoach.live. We will be right back with our next Master Coach on the 100 Master Coaches series.